What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Popcorn People Podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On today's episode, we figured we would have a little bit of fun with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We are now 37, yes, as crazy as that sounds, 37 films into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we are going to rank them, including the Fantastic Four, First Steps, and Thunderbolts. But before we dive in, I am joined by my podcast partner here, Mr. Don Fisher. How are you, brother?
What's popping kernels? Man, this shit 37 is crazy. Like I know it's I know it's not like a singular movie franchise, but essentially it's a franchise. And just imagine any franchise being 37 films deep. That is nuts. And we know that it's going to continue to go. We know that the MCU is about to get reboot. So it's we're eventually going to end up with like, oh yeah, we're ranking the top 200.
Right. Well, I mean, I was looking at lists, man. Like if you include like the movies and TV shows, I think it's 53. Hang on one second. I was looking at video. 53 movies and TV shows. If you put the TV shows and movies together, that's first off, I didn't even know that there were 16 Marvel shows, like TV shows.
I guess when you're watching it, like you're not counting. You just say, "Oh, this is a new one. Let me watch this. This is a new one to watch this," and you're not thinking like, "Yo, this is a lot." And we watched them all. Like it's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: I have not watched all of the TV shows. I don't believe, but I know there's a lot of them. Let's see. I was trying to see. Yeah, I don't know. But so talk to me about the building of your list before we dive in. So basically what we're going to do, folks, is we're going to share a block of our list, right? We're going to share them together at the same time. They'll be on the screen. Dom will identify his. I'll identify my list so that, people aren't yelling and screaming at him for my bad list. But when you're kind of dissecting your list, where do you feel like you felt like it was the easiest? And where did you feel like maybe it was the most difficult?
I think the top 4 or 5 were probably the easiest because I knew automatically like what were my top, and the top it really hasn't changed too much besides adding something recently. And then the bottom, like there's one movie that's consistently been like my least favorite, and I can't even really say that it's like the worst movie, like, for everyone. It's just for me, it's like it's one that I watched it once, I think maybe 1.5 times, and I never wanted to go back to it. And it just the story didn't interest me. It had a few elements or one specific element that was kind of cool looking, but other than that, I was just like, I don't care. And the ones in the middle, that's I think that's probably the hardest, because you start like you'll put a movie in a place and then you go, oh, well, this one, does it go, I don't know, and then you have to start going into the impact of within the MCU, the performances, whether or not you like this character at all, really. So I feel like there's characters that I have that are not necessarily my favorite, or I think that their power sets are kind of boring as a solo, but good as like a feature. So that plays a part into moving some stuff around. So, I'm sure there's gonna be somebody that yells at me and like, I can't believe you put this movie here. But I don't know, man. Like there's some things that you see on screen that's just like, I mean, it's cool, but like, do you really need to have a solo movie when other characters don't necessarily have a solo movie that could, so that's kind of how it plays out for me.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me of like struggling the list is that one. I think you pinpointed it. I didn't even think like some of these characters are interesting, but they're more interesting as a collective whole. You know what I mean? Like, you solidify yourself into, the Avengers, and you're like, damn, that's cool. I like that character. You know what I mean? But then there's some of these movies, I struggled with, I think, recency bias as well.
Yeah,
It's been a while since I've seen a lot of these movies, like so many of these movies from the early stages. Like I haven't really watched in a long time, but I mean, thankfully, Letterboxd is around because all my ratings for all 37 movies were in here. And then like I would look at him like, damn, I was really harsh on this movie. Like I don't remember being this fucking harsh on this movie. I don't remember giving this movie like 2 stars or 1.5 stars. And but there's also I agree with you, like the middle of the pack, I was like, I really like this movie. I think it's like the maybe from like 9 to 20. I'm like, I like this movie. And then I'm like slowly moving another movie up, and then I'm moving another movie down. And then I'm like, what are we
yep,
doing here? Like I'm flipping back and forth, flipping, and I'm just like, I don't feel great about that list, and I feel like that's like ever. It's almost like it's ever changing, but I really do feel confident about like my top 8. I feel strong about my top 8. I don't know how I feel about my ranking in the 4 through 8 range, and then there's certain movies that I feel like had such a big impact, but maybe like for example, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but the original Avengers, right? The first
yeah,
Avengers, it was the first of its kind. For the longest time, I had it so high on my rankings because I was like, it was the first of its kind. But then when you think about the overall film, I'm like, it's really not that good. You know what I mean? But the symbolism of the movie, bringing everybody together for the first time, it was such a cool experience to watch, though.
right.
But yeah. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive, and we'll start at the bottom of our list. I think I have it 37 through 29, maybe. And I'm going to pop it up on I'm going to add it to our screen here. Then I'm going to change our screen. There we go. All right. So Dom's is at the bottom. It's 29 through 37. Mine's at the top. Dom's is at the bottom. There's going to be some controversial hits on the list for my list. But Dom, we're not going to like dissect all of them. You can just say all of them, and then maybe like 1 or 2 films that, kind of, we'll talk about 1 or 2 films. But I'll let you do your list first, and I'll do my first, and then we'll talk about the list.
Yeah, I mean, Thor: The Dark World. This is like what I was talking about. I think this was. I think I can confidently say that this is in the bottom, at least bottom 3 for most people. Sorry, it's just not great. It didn't hit like that. The Ant-Man and the Wasp, I just didn't care. I didn't go back to. I literally, like, when I was making this list, I forgot about the movie. I forgot that it happened. I don't. Sorry, Ant-Man. I just don't. I didn't care till Quantumania, and that's because Kang was in there. So
and we can't tell because all of the Ant-Mans are down here in the bottom. You know what I mean? We can't tell at all. Sorry, Ant-Man.
And then Captain Marvel. I didn't hate the movie like a lot of people did, but when you do compare to the rest of the films, it's just not as good. And of course, Iron Man 3. So let me preface this by saying some of these movies as well, if I can't really remember a lot of what took place, that just lets me know like I didn't like it that much. The Marvels, it was cool, but like I said, it's gonna fall where it falls. Quantumania, and it's higher because Jonathan Majors' performance. It technically could have been a little lower because of the Ant-Man story. Like, while I thought the movie did some cool things, it just wasn't powerful enough to overtake.
What could have been Jonathan Majors?
I
What could have
know.
been.
Ant-Man again. It is what it is. Doctor Strange is one of those characters where I think he's cool as a feature, part of the team by himself. And it just because magic is hard to do. Magic is hard to quantify. It's hard to always make everything look cool. And then they're never physically really fighting anybody too much. So you kind of start to get kind of bored. And then Thor: Love and Thunder, look, I am one of the people who ranked it a little higher than most because I had saw that like this story is being told by Korg. So of course it's a little fucking wacky and goofy. But again, it's not beating out some of the rest of these films.
Yeah, it's crazy to me because so the first thing I looked at was like, obviously I started comparing our list, right? And I was like, man, we have some big time variances at the bottom and even in the middle a little bit, because obviously 37, we have the same exact film, Thor: Dark World. 36, I've got Captain Marvel. 35, The Hulk, which I mean, I forget that movie exists half the time. This is where I know I get a little bit controversial with 34 and 33. 34, I have Deadpool and Wolverine. I hated that movie with a passion, and I know I'm on record saying how much I hated that movie, and a lot of why I hated that movie was it just felt like it was verbatim kind of garbage in so many different levels, you know what I mean? And I didn't think it was anywhere near as good as the other two films. Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness. If I never see another multiverse movie, I'd be the happiest man in the world. I also agree with Doctor Strange. I was scrolling on my list and I was like, I don't even know how the original one made it as high as it did. When I just looked at my rankings right now, because I was like, wait a minute, where do I have Doctor Strange on my list? And I moved up. It's not much higher than what we see here. And then, of course, Iron Man 2, Captain America, The First Avenger, Thor, and then Black Widow. There's just this is to me, and I didn't think about it at first, but you pinpointed it perfectly, right? If I haven't thought about the movie, or if I can't, like, if I'm like there, if you watch a good movie, or even a good movie, great movie, yes, good movie, there's things you can remember about the movie that stand out to you. Most of these movies in the bottom half here, I agree, like on my bottom half, like I don't really remember what happened, nor did I like remember caring about what happened. So because of that, and that's the problem in this universe, there's so many monumental moments, right? That kind of shock you. So before we move on to the list, give me a movie on my list that kind of shocks you where it's at.
I mean, it's definitely gonna have to be Wolverine because I really enjoyed it. Especially the opening sequence is crazy and maybe a little overlong as it was with the whole bye 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 scene. I thought it was cool, and there's a lot of movie gave me a lot of fan service, which I enjoyed seeing. Blade pop back up was definitely like, oh shit, I gotta give you some props for that. So
yeah, for me, obviously, like the big reason I hate that movie is because I'm such a Logan fan. I think Logan's one of the greatest comic books ever, or comic book movies ever made, and it's top probably 5 if you really look at it. I'd have to look at my entire list, but there's way too many comic book movies to do that kind of ranking. But because of that, I just felt like that arc, and I never wanted to really see Hugh Jackman again as Wolverine because of that. And I just felt like it was such a fitting farewell. On your list, I'm a Thor Love and Thunder apologist, so that might be my movie, because all the rest of yours are like, I think the rest of these are like in my next tier. I like the Ant-Man movies, I think, a little bit more than you did, but also I think I like the Ant-Man movies for everything you said about Ant-Man the character, more about everybody else than Ant-Man himself. So
right.
All right, so let's move on to our next batch. This is 13 through, wait, hold on. Did I miss like a batch of movies? 25, 26, 27, 28. Hang on. I did. All right. Well, we missed a batch of movies. So before we move into this list, give me your 25, 26, 27, 28, because I don't have them apparently on my list.
Okay. So my 28 was Captain America Brave New World. It just fully wasn't a Captain America movie. The focus was pulled to Thunderbolt Ross, in which I thought could have been done better. And I like Anthony Mackie as Captain America. They did him a disservice.
Isn't Brave New World? That's the TV show.
No, it's a movie, right?
No, is it?
Yeah.
Then what am I missing? I thought, is Brave New World the one that came out this year?
Yeah.
Okay, you just keep going. Sorry, I don't know what the fuck's going
on. 27 was The Incredible Hulk. I think I really enjoyed it when it came out. It was kind of dark, and I like Edward Norton, and I was kind of upset that we didn't get him in the MCU fully, but shout out to Ruffalo. Then I had Spider-Man: Homecoming. I thought it was cool when it first came out, and then as the rest of the stuff came out, I was like, oh, this it was all right. It was okay. And then Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness. I watched that for Elizabeth Olsen. That was it.
So I had it flip-flop. I took Falcon and the Winter Soldier was the TV show.
Yeah.
So I have it wrong on my list. So I took that one out and not Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I forgot. I always forget which one of those was the TV show. 28 for me is a very controversial one. Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I hated that movie, and the biggest reason I hated that movie is because nobody died. Nobody of substance died.
Right.
Iron Man 3, 27, Ant-Man 26, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is 25. Not Falcon and Winter, Brave New World. Sorry, I got it mixed up, and that's why I'm glad it's not on the list. But yes, so now we can move on to. Damn it! No, we can't because 21 through 24 is missing too now. I screwed this all up, everybody. But yeah, so talk to me about 25 through 28. On my list, I got Guardian of the Galaxy. You're a Guardian of the Galaxy guy, right?
Yeah,
Three?
yeah.
Three?
Yeah, I like 3. I think it was more of the emotional pull for me, the whole Rocket storyline, which you honestly could have made like how they did like the special. They could have done it by itself. Then a whole thing where you just focus on Rocket's journey instead of including it into the film. But I think it worked pretty well. Then we got one of the better villains because he was so brutal, and honestly, the timing was a little off with this movie because now that we're all having this eugenics conversation with recent, ads and whatnot, this movie kind of would probably hit a little harder if it came out now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm trying to see if I can add a movie to this thing real quick, guys, while we're doing this. I didn't realize let's see. Let me drag and drop it in here.
I'm trying to get 21 through 24.
Boom! It's on the list now, baby. We're up now. You can see that, right? All right, let's see. We can see that 21 through. Boom!
Yeah.
All right, hang on here.
I think it just switched us, like placement wise.
Okay, yeah. You're on the I'm on the bottom. You're on the top. Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, so for me, let's see here. All right, so 28, 27, 26, 25, we're good. All right, now we can do 21 through 24. I'll go first. I got Captain America, Winter Soldier. So for some reason, all of the Captain America movies in my head run together. Okay, and I know this is like a controversial thing because I looked at your list and I was like, why does he have this movie so high? And I was very confused, and I'm still very confused because I guess I don't remember which one of these movies it is. So that's why it's 24, and I can definitely be TBD on re-ranking this in the future. But Doctor Strange 23, OG Iron Man 22. I don't feel like any of the Iron Man movies are really memorable. Like I think on a level of it's like the first movie, it's memorable, but I don't know. And then I have the Marvels. I was a little bit higher on the Marvels than you were. So 24 through 21, what do you got?
So yeah, Shang-Chi. While I remember reviewing this movie, I liked the movie a lot. I thought I did a lot of good things well, but just like the MCU did, it buried it with so much other stuff and never really mentioned them too much. I mean, it did mention them or mention aspects of the film in the future and future projects, but we don't really hear his name like that, and it failed for me. It became not as memorable. I didn't really go back to it. Then we have Black Widow. I enjoy Black Widow. I think it got hurt by being released during the pandemic, and after the fact that she had already been taken out in Endgame, so it was like felt a little weird. And then Guardians of the Galaxy. It was hard. I had both. At 22, I have the OG, and then I have part 2, and I thought that they would be a little higher, and they were at first, and then I start to be like, oh well, there is some better things, but I do like the fact that we have this group of characters that we were relatively unfamiliar with and made us care, and now there's some characters you wouldn't want to not be there, which hats off to James Gunn for taking this big swing and making legacy characters now.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right. Let's move on to actually the 13 through 20 this time for sure. This time you're at the top, I'm on the bottom. All right. So this is where I feel like we have some similar movies. I feel like this is where I'm a little bit higher on Ant-Man, it's crazy to say I'm a little bit higher on Ant-Man, but 18 and 19 is really not that strong of a rating. You know what I mean? I have 33, but it's like middle of the pack. But All right, for me, I'll go first here. I've got Avengers. Again, this is a movie that I find so hard to rank. It's such a good movie. Like, it's such a good concept and high concept, and it's like something that you want to rank higher just based off of it being the OG, but it's just not a great movie either. I think it looks like shit too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's see here. Coming in at number 19, I have Ant-Man and the Wasp. And then, of course, after that, I got Quantumania. Quantumania ranks high for Jonathan Majors and basically Jonathan Majors alone. The OG, Guardians of the Galaxy, Wakanda Forever. Wakanda Forever is a movie that I struggle with because I really liked Wakanda Forever. But it's like, once you get to the top 10, you're like, is it top 10 worthy? Because like that's where we're on the precipice, on the cusp here, right? We're on the cusp of the top 10, right? And our next ranked part of what we look at is like, 12 and above. And it's like, does it fit into that top 12? And it's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? When I originally made the list and I was tinkering with the list, I had it top 12, but then I was like, I don't know. I'm a big Thor Love and Thunder guy. I thought it was fun. I know a lot of people hate it, including Dom, apparently. But Shang-Chi, I have the same sentiment as you do. Like, this is a movie that I could see myself ranking even lower because it's like his impact on the MCU should have been higher. I can't believe that this movie made money the way that it did. I mean, I think it made like 800 million at the box office, 800 million, and then they just have done nothing with the character. And then Age of Ultron, it's crazy to me to think that like I like this better than this. It's a movie. When I rewatched it a few years ago, I was like, this is better than I thought it was because I always thought it was dog shit. And I rewatched it and I was like, oh, this is actually good. And it's like that and the Avengers. And I see that it's pretty close in your rankings as well, where it's like, man, it's middle of the pack MCU, which is fine. You know what I mean? So, all right, talk to me about your 20 to 13 before we look at each other's list.
So Thor. So, okay, this is what I really struggled with Thor because I do remember the movie kind of fondly, but it's one of those ones where if you do go back and watch it compared to where we are now, it does look very minimalist. You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, but this is, I think, where we kind of stepped into this like literal superpowered god figures and then mixing with humans and letting him see the humanity that he needed to capture to become a true hero. So I think that's why I put it so high. I misspoke and said OG Guardians of the Galaxy earlier, but I meant volume 2 and 3. This is the OG. It's fun. It's a fun movie, and it was completely different than any superhero movie we had seen. I mean, just the intro is like an iconic intro. And I honestly, I think this is what, and I can only speak for my son, but I feel like the sentiment is travels well, is that this got kids into like old school music. Like they were like, oh, what is this song? And you're like, let me show you. Civil War, I think was cool. Could have been done a little bit better because it felt a little cheesy at times, but we're gonna see another version of this later in Secret Wars, so we'll see how that plays out. Like you, I enjoyed Age of Ultron. I like, and I've seen a resurgence of people changing their mind and realizing how big of an impact this movie made. Now we can talk about the director a whole nother time, but Age of Ultron was fun. I mean, it's just specifically the scene where they're all trying to lift the hammer, Thor's hammer, and then he sees that, oh shit, Cap jiggled it a little bit, and Cap realized he could pick it up, but it wasn't time. I didn't, you don't want to shit on your homie like that. Eternals, a lot of people don't like Eternals. I don't know why. It was beautifully made. I really enjoyed it. The only reason I have it so low, well, not so low, it's lower than what it could be, is just the fact that it's another movie where these characters really haven't been revisited. So the impact of it, I took down because I was like, I don't know if they're going to do anything again. I assume at some point when we get back in space, they will, but until now, I don't know. The OG Avengers, and it's kind of what Ricky was saying, is the fact that it was the first time we seen them all like together, and you're like, oh yeah. But again, you go back and look at it, and you're like, oh, this don't look too great. The the sentiments are still there, but it's like, and Iron Man 2. I thought Iron Man 2 was cool.
I am shocked by you having Iron Man 2 so high. That movie, I need you to
I
go
know,
watch
and
it. It's dog shit, brother.
no, look, I go back and forth on it, but I like the fact that he was getting put in this place. He was getting his ass whooped, and I just seeing a character that is so arrogant finally getting, and for one, being confused and not being able to get his way. I was like, okay, this is character defining for him, having to be humbled. And then Fantastic Four, I wanted to jump a little higher, but I just wanted to wait. I had it higher at first, and then I was like, you know what? Let me wait a minute. It hasn't really sat in that much yet for me to definitively put it up a little higher, because another new one jumped a little higher, and that's because I've sat with it, and I think it made more of an immediate impact to me. But
yeah, mine's not too far off of where I have Fantastic Four. But all right, so looking at my 13 through 20, anything just jump off at you?
Man, so I think I think Love and Thunder, it kind of makes you wish I would have put mine a little higher, because I did like the movie. I think me and you were probably the only people that were kind of defending it, because I mean, it's one of those things where it's like why does every story have to be so serious, especially after Ragnarok, and we kind of got this goofiness, a little bit out of the characters. Like, everything does, he's a god. Gods don't take stuff seriously. They've been around for hundreds or thousands or millennium. Why do they have to be so serious all the time? Because they've seen everything come, seen everything go. So it makes sense for things to be kind of tongue-in-cheek, and that's fine. So I think that works, and I think that we're just, as a superhero society, we're just conditioned to everything being dramatic when it's life and death. But if you're a god, I mean, you're not going to die, so you're not going to take it that serious.
Yeah, for me, I think Civil Wars, you've made me refeel I have Civil War pretty high on my list, but for some reason in my head now, you have me rethinking whether or not I really should like that movie. And we'll talk about it in a minute, because it's like it's way higher in my rankings, but I still love that movie. But yeah, I'm gonna have to rethink my entire existence after seeing your ranking of it. But that's the one that kind of surprises me. I'm also really happy that you have the Eternals really high, because it's kind of on my next batch. It gets way too much hate.
Yeah,
for no reason at all. All right, let's move on up to our 5 through 12. That's the correct thing to move up to, right? Yep, sure is.
Yep.
5 through 12. I'll kick it off, and that's why I was saying, hey, Fantastic Four, really close to where you had it.
Yeah.
Because you have it at 13, I have it at 12. I have issues with the movie. I wouldn't be surprised if this movie moves down a little bit. I don't think that there's a position in my head where I think it could go up at all. Because when you look at the movies that you're looking at the movies on the list, right? You know what I mean? And you're trying to dissect it. I don't feel like there's a position for it to move up. And for me, the reason, I just don't find that up there, right? I can see it moving down more than I can moving up. I don't know how well it's going to play on a rewatch.
Right.
That's kind of the scary part about this, is because some of these movies that I have in the rest of the movies I have a top 11 or 12. That's why it's hard not to be stuck in the recency bias of it all. Because for me, it's like I am kind of stuck in the recency bias whenever you rank this high, because you're right. There's another movie in this top, in this 5 through 12 that's very recent, but the movie, I still think about the movie. You know what I mean? So number 11, Thor Ragnarok. Another movie I feel like doesn't get enough love, and it's number 11, which it's still high, top tier for me. Eternals comes in at number 10. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. You made a good point about the Guardians of the Galaxy. The soundtracks on those are some of the best of any comic book movies ever. James Gunn knows how to use music. He even did it in Superman 2.
Yeah.
So Praise to him. I think this is the best of the three. I love Guardians of the Galaxy 2. As you'll see on my list, I'm a Spider-Man stan. I've got Homecoming 8, Far From Home 7, and then No Way Home 5. They're just very good movies at the end of the day. Like, they're just very, very good movies. And Homecoming is one that I haven't revisited in a while, and it's something that I do think that it could move down a little bit. Again, these lists are ever changing. You know what I mean? As you sit with them, as you rewatch them, it is definitely the weakest of the three. But I do think that Tom Holland as Spider-Man has really solidified himself as one of my favorite comic book characters. Has been portrayed in movies, and I think he's a great addition to the other movies that he's in that aren't Spider-Man related. I think that he's been some of the scenes with obviously him and Robert Downey Jr. were some of the best. And number 6 for me is the Thunderbolts. You have it higher than I do, and I'm sad because I really want to have it higher. Like, it's like no bullshit. Like, when I was looking at my rankings, I'm like, this is probably Thunderbolts might be top 3 MCU ever. And at first, when I made my rankings, I didn't look at your rankings until you sent them to me this morning so that I can make these little charts. And when I did it, I was like, man, if I put this top 5, is it recency bias? Like, am I really? And then I saw it through. I was like, fuck. Like, I already made my rankings. And I was like, you had to hire. And this is legitimately I'm kind of mad right now. Like, I really just want to move it. You know what I mean? But to me, one of the most well-written, all-around comic book movies ever made is Thunderbolts. And I'll stand on that hill for the rest of my life. And I know you'll talk a little bit more about it whenever we get to that portion of your list. But I love it. So, all right, give me your 5 through 12, though.
Yeah, so, this is where we start to kind of get into the Spider-Man for me as well. And it's kind of hard not to. I mean, Spider-Man is just such a cool character. There's even a Psychology of Spider-Man book that you can read, and I've gone through it, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it shows us the fact that anybody can be a hero. Now, granted, we're not going to be Spider-Man level because we've not yet to see the true strength of Spider-Man yet. Those who read the comics know he's holding back most of the time. Then we get Wakanda Forever, and this was a hard one because we know what it could have been, and I think a lot of this does hold an emotional weight, which is why it's so high. And then also, it's cool to see Namor, and then having the unfortunately, you have the two minority cultures clashing, but then eventually realizing hey, what are we doing? So it plays itself out and better towards the end. Iron Man, I think, is just one of those, it kicked it off kind of things, and I do enjoy it. I have watched it multiple times, and this kind of showed us the mentality and the willpower of Tony. So that's why I kind of placed it high. Deadpool Wolverine, like Ricky was saying, it did suck. I was one of the people as well who didn't want to see Logan come back. I was like, dude, that send off. That's one of the only movies, and you can say it's weird or not, it's one of the only movies that I'm in the theater man, this is some bullshit. But I did enjoy the kind of good cop, bad cop situation, grumpy old men type of thing going on. It was a lot of fun. Captain America, okay. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that this character was going to be one that I would like on screen. Because Superman, I just thought the guy in the comics, and it's different in the recent iterations over the past 15 years. When I was a kid, though, I thought it was corny. I thought that I saw the old Captain America made for TV movie. The dude was corny. The whole Boy Scout thing was just boring. But the way that Chris Evans and Kevin Feige and them have portrayed him, dude, it's fucking great. And the first movie, I remember not watching it until it came on DVD because I was like, it's Captain America, who cares? And then I watched it and I was like, oh, damn. All right, I was wrong. I was way wrong. No Way Home. Dude, it's hard not to like that movie. Like anybody who just dabbled a little bit in the other Spider-Man films, like Toby and Andrew, and then saw these and then you watch this movie, how can you not like be excited when you see this? Ragnarok was easily one of my favorites as soon as it came out. I mean, the fact that they pulled in, I can't think of her name, that played Hela, Kate Blanchett. Like, how? You know what I mean? Like that just lets you know, for one, you can be a serious actor, actress, and still come to the MCU and put your thing down, flip it and reverse it. You feel me? And Endgame, I mean, the only reason I did it's not in the top 4, top 3 is because I believe my other picks are just stronger. But the one scene alone where we finally see Cap get, using Mjolnir and the shield, I mean, that's one of my favorite movie moments of all time, because we did watch this build for a decade and then to see that happen, like, and then have a crowded theater and everybody's like, holy shit. Like, it was great.
Yeah, again, there's a few movies that you watch, even whenever we went and saw No Way Home, right? You know what I mean? We saw No Way Home in theater with a bunch of critics,
Yep.
and it was still just like magical. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, just because you nerd out over those. All right, let's move on to the top tier, right? You know what I mean? We have the echelons of movies here. Are 4, 3, 2, 1. Dom, I'll let you kick it off with your 4, 3, 2, 1, man.
Yeah, so Winter Soldier is one of my favorite, and it's mainly because this, out of every MCU movie, this was the most like intense, action packed. I mean, like the scene where they're in the middle of the street fighting and they're doing kind of the Marines like trying to stab, dropping the knife action sequence. And it's everybody who's like, they're powered, Bucky and Cap, but they can't fly. There's no laser vision, there's no magic. It's fisticuffs, and then you have, Falcon trying to assist, and you have Carter's niece. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on, and we also have just a introduction to like a super badass in Bucky. Black Panther, dude, I ain't gonna lie, it hurt me to move it out of my 2 spot, because initially it was my 2. Chadwick is gonna go down as probably one of the greatest superhero portrayals in history. And getting introduced to Wakanda in such like grand fashion, and allowing the Blurs to come out the woodwork and like champion like a hero that you've been reading about for a long time, that a lot of people had kind of seen but never really knew like the totality of him and his world, and the way that they were able to incorporate the things that are going on now. And then he gave us fucking Killmonger, like, fantastic. Thunderbolts is new, but Thunderbolts hit like a fucking hammer, dude. And Florence Pugh, definitely in my top 5 actors of the past like 8 years. And especially with these bigger personalities, and I'm just not talking about as characters, but these are all super big artists in their own right, all these actors together. And the fact that they were able to give each other space to perform and have their own moments worked really well together. And then we get like the fucking Pullman scene where he looks like fucking Goku kicking ass, and then diving into like the mental health, and it was really good. And it's definitely one that like still lingers, and we've been voting on the Super Awards, so it's always one that's been in the forefront of my mind since it came out. And then Infinity War, the stakes were never been higher, dude. Like, and we got an ending that none of us expected. We didn't expect to see the fucking snap. Like, I mean, we knew it, but the way they did it, you're snapping away important people, you're snapping away like half of existence, and like the way that they eventually came back, and like, dude, Infinity War, and I've probably watched it, and it's long, and uh those are movies that people tend not to go back to except for like to show somebody. But leisurely, I've probably watched it 6 times. It's just that good. And like when Thor is struggling, his shit's broke, he's got to get Stormbreaker, and then the entrance of him and Rocket coming. Like, and then seeing Cap, like, this is when you like, he's that dude. When Thanos is, doing his thing and he's holding them back, and Thanos is like, oh, this is a real nigga right here. I need to hold up. Like, what's up? And yeah, man, like it is a fantastic movie. And I dare for, the people who are too good for the superhero genre, and believe that it's not art or it's not whatever, get a little bit of context, watch this movie, and tell me you don't feel a little something, even if it's just as simple as Wanda fighting for her man and Vision. Like, you have to feel some of this shit. And the fact that, like, put yourself in the shoes of someone like Black Widow. All you have is like extreme ability to protect yourself, right? And take down people, no superpowers. And you're trying to stop the world from an alien invasion, like knowing that they could punch your spine out, you know what I mean? And she said, fuck it, like, this is what I do. Like, they got to give it some kind of respect, man.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, you know what I mean, and obviously I have Endgame 4, Civil War 3, Black Panther 2, and Infinity War 1. I really feel like Thunderbolts will probably slide into my 4 slot, really, if I think about it. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I think with Endgame, it's almost like the OG Avengers. You know what I mean? Like, you really wish that you could put it number 1, but Infinity War was just that movie. You know what I mean? It was just such a monumental feat. I mean, Endgame is the same thing, right? Because Endgame, I mean, I think, when you look at it, they're pretty close in ratings for me,
Yeah.
when it comes down to ratings. Like, those movies probably shouldn't work. There's too many moving pieces. There's too many characters. There's too many things going on. And yet somehow they consistently work. And for me, it's crazy to relive and rewatch those movies, and they still have that same lasting impact. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many emotional, gut-punching moments that just leave your jaw on the floor. And it's like, one, they'll never be able to recapture the cultural impact that the Black Panther had on society. You know what I mean? That movie was a phenomenon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Chadwick being gone is like depressing. You know what I mean? It really is, because, and it's not just for the Black Panther. It's just for the fact that, he wasn't a phenomenal actor. And I think the way that he carried the weight of that role was something that was beautiful to watch every day too. You know what I mean? Because, yeah, I mean, it just was. And then, of course, when it comes down to it, Infinity War is one of the best comic book movies, but one of the best movies made over the last 20 years. You know what I mean? I agree with you 100% when it comes down to it. At the end of the day, it's like, you talk about comic book movies in this different light, and it's just not true. You know what I mean? Comic book movies can make you feel. Watch Logan and tell me that. You know what I mean? Like, watch Nolan's trilogy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not as, I'm more of a Dark Knight Rises guy than I am a Dark Knight guy, but still, like, watch the impact that those movies have. Like, they can make you feel things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, these movies can make you feel things. And yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me to think about 37 movies. Sure, there's some bottom movies that, are very unforgettable, but there is quite a few movies within this genre and within this era phases of movies that have a profound impact. And when you come down to it 10 years from now, it's definitely going to be talked about. Like, Thunderbolts will be in that conversation just based on, the realistic emotion. You don't even have to really watch any of the other Avenger or any of the other MCU movies to watch Thunderbolts and watch it and feel something. You know what I mean? Because everybody is dealing with something along those lines of what those characters went through in that entire thing. So it's definitely, just like, wow, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I love this, even I'm not as emotionally invested in the TV shows as I am the movies, but it's very few and far between before you're going to see me miss out on a Marvel movie even now, you know what I mean? But with Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, it does feel like a step in the right direction of what we've seen in the past. And, with another Spider-Man movie, which, can only, if it's three-quarters as good as the first three, you know what I mean? Like, we're in for a treat type of thing. So, and then of course we have Avengers Doomsday or whatever the hell they're called coming in 2027 or whatever it is. But, it'll be interesting to see how they line these characters up. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the X-Men characters, because X-Men, they make good movies. You know what I mean? Like, I like those characters, and I really hope that they need some young people. You know what I mean? Stop casting some of these old heads that won't be around in 10 years. You know what I mean? So, and people show up to see these movies because they don't have to have Robert Downey Jr. in them. You know what I mean? Like, that's, to me, the big thing.
That's the biggest point, I think. I think that's the biggest and greatest point, is that these characters are so embedded into, like, what everybody in society across probably the world, or majority of the world, has heard of the X-Men. You've heard of Spider-Man, you've heard of Iron Man, you've heard of Superman, like Batman. There's certain characters that, like, transcend generations, societies, and you don't have to have this well-known, big-name, $300 million actor to play an iconic role like Doctor Doom. Like, we all love Robert Downey Jr., but again, that's another person who had a perfect send-off, the ultimate sacrifice. And now, while they could probably do some kind of cool thing about why Victor looks like this and an alternate reality or whatever, it takes away from Endgame a little bit. And a lot of people, while they're excited about the character, I think more people were excited about the character than anything. But, like, it seems lazy. It does, because the multiverse thing lets you retcon and do things that's like, I get it, and you get away the comics are done, but in a cinematic sense, it seems lazy, because you don't want to kill off certain people. But yeah, I mean, if we go pull some dude off the street that's, like, walking to his car from the grocery store and say, "Hey, you're gonna fucking play Spider-Man," if he has enough exuberance, he's my new fucking Spider-Man. I don't care, as long as you do the character well. You don't have to be somebody that we all know, and I think that was the beauty of the beginning of of the MCU. So we knew some of the names, but they weren't like A-list super mega stars like they are now, besides maybe like Scarlett Johansson, because she was like top performer for a long time, still is. But yeah, give us some fresh faces. We know the characters, and let's lean into, like, a good next, I guess 10 years of MCU, and make them stars. You can make the MCU should be known as, like, the star makers. That we make you into global faces. And you're gonna have to keep somebody around. I don't know who that person is. I mean, I guess it's Robert Downey Jr. for now, and maybe that's what it was. Maybe him. Maybe he's gonna be the new Wrangler. I gotta show you how to, like, walk this path, and Tom Holland as well. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean that's why I kind of like there's elements of the Fantastic Four that I do like, because Joseph Quinn isn't really he's a known actor for just small things, and even Ebon Moss, you know what I mean? He's not really known outside of the Bear, you know what I mean? Like, that's those two were perfect, and Vanessa Kirby was Fantastic Four, and Pedro Pascal is a different story, but yeah, at the end of the day, I would like to see, like, Chris Evans, you know what I mean? He wasn't not known. You know what I mean? But and then even Robert Downey Jr. at the time was a risk, because he's bouncing back from all of his issues. So it wasn't like all of these people Chris Hemsworth wasn't really exactly blowing the charts off of things.
Nope.
You know what I mean? And look at these guys now. You know what I mean? You know, Chris Pratt was just a fucking guy off of, you know, Parks and Rec. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, like that's, you know, that to me, there's a lot of different people that you can look at in this universe that were kind of not really people, like they weren't nobodies, but they weren't exactly blowing the doors off of anything, and now have turned into worldwide stars. So, but yeah, that is it. We ranked all 37 MCU movies. We're continuing to look at the month of August. You know, here it's still a little bit light, so we figured we deviate from the typical plan of what we have. But you know, I know there's the big release of the week this week, I think, is Weapons, I believe, which has really kind of, you know, set the world to a tune. You know what I mean? People are very, very excited about that movie, and I don't know if I'm not excited about it, but I'm also, you know, kind of excited about it. So I do think that that's something coming out very soon. What else do we have coming out soon before we?
I will say, horror franchises, take note on what Weapons did with their trailers. You give us a little, but I don't need to know the whole plot and premise synopsis of the movie to want to see it. Like, I think that's why there's so much buzz around this movie, is because we're all kind of like, so what is it about? This shit look kind of wild. I don't even know what they're doing, and that I think is perfect for that genre. Really a lot of genres is to give us just enough to pique our interest and just leave us, what they call it, edge us, right? Let me blow my load when I get into the
Exactly.
theater. Okay?
Exactly. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, we got an interesting few weeks coming up with, I don't feel like there's a whole lot of, you know, groundbreaking things, you know, set to kind of release and stuff like that. But, you know, let's see here. I didn't watch The Naked Gun. Freakier.
I heard it was good yesterday. I saw Charlie yesterday, and he said it was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Freakier Friday, Weapons, Americana, which is interesting. Highest to Lowest, I'm very excited about, just because it's Spike Lee. Nobody 2, Honey Don't, I don't even know what that is. And that's really Caught Stealing. I'm kind of excited about that.
Yeah, because you know, it's funny, Caught Stealing in the trailer. I mean, I was like, before I saw the director's name on there, I was like, man, this kind of feels like Requiem for a Dream. Boom, his name pops. I was like, oh,
no wonder
I'm there.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, that is it for this week's episode of the Popcorn People podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in each and every week. We will be back next week breaking down whatever the hell we watch.
Peace.